During an immigration roundtable at the White House, Donald Trump was talking about immigrants. He was asked a few questions about that. And one question had to do with the trouble rounding up and deporting gang members. And here is how Donald Trump addressed that topic.
There can be an MS-13 gang member I know about. If they don't reach a certain threshold, I cannot tell ICE about them.
No. We have people coming into the country or trying to come in. We're stopping a lot of them. But we're taking people out of the country. You wouldn't believe how bad these people are. These aren't people. These are animals. And we're taking them out of the country at a level and at a rate that's never happened before. And because of the weak laws, they come in fast. We get them, we release them, we get them again, we bring them out. It's crazy. The dumbest laws, as I said before, the dumbest laws on immigration in the world.
So there's a lot to break down there. Obviously the highlight is these are not people, these are animals. And there's been some condemnation of that coming towards Donald Trump since that.
But also this is the same person who, there's still this argument on whether or not he referred to countries full of black people as, you know where I'm going.
Well, we have the quote, why are we having all these people from S-hole countries come here, referring to Haiti, El Salvador, African countries.
And also the whole Mexicans are sending their rapists.
And their murderers.
And this happened before Donald Trump was elected to lead this country. So I don't think anyone is surprised. I think at this point, and someone was calling it a dog whistle, at this point, the lines are drawn. I think, it's very clear who appreciates this type of talk and who, unfortunately, is, I don't want to say vilified by this type of talk, but what this does is this emboldens people to become what we're going to talk about later.
Yeah.
The next guy in the middle of a random salad restaurant,
Yeah, I know that there are people who believe that Donald Trump is simply like taking the mask off of some underlying realities about America. And there's probably a small element of that, but that isn't really an apt analogy when it appears that he's just making it worse.
Right.
That he's not simply revealing xenophobia and anti-Muslim, anti-immigrant rhetoric. He's doing it far worse. His supporters are growing more strident, more extremist. Extremist groups are sprouting up at an increased pace. He's not simply revealing things, he's actually making them far worse. And so look, as you've pointed out, he's said a lot of bad things about all sorts of people.
This is in line with
the
that.
Past. It is in line with that. I think that to some extent, like we talk about, if he says that they're rapists and they're murderers, he is to some extent dehumanizing them. But here he's literally dehumanizing them. He is saying they are not people. Don't think of them as people. Think of them as animals. Now, some on the right have launched criticism at the criticism, saying, you guys are being unfair. You're taking him out of context. He's not talking about immigrants there. He's just talking about MS-13 gang members. Now, I will grant them, his statement is in response to a question about those gang members. But we also know how Donald Trump thinks and how Donald Trump speaks. By the time he got to they're not people, they're animals, his mind had already gone off on 30 different tangents in his stream of consciousness. Can you honestly say that he wasn't thinking about generalized immigrants when he got to that point? And even if one other point, even if he wasn't, it doesn't matter. Because as we've pointed out, this is in line with his comments, not about gang members, but about immigrants in general. And we also know exactly why he says things like this. It is to rile up his xenophobic, white supremacist, anti-immigrant base. And they will see that. And do you think that his base will see that and think, oh, he's just criticizing gang members there? No, they like the dehumanization of immigrants in general. That is what that comment was provided for.
And this is so fascinating because this is coming from someone who is so apt to recognizing the good people on both sides, on all sides, the good people who just happen to be standing there. What about the gang members who don't murder? Are they animals?
I wish that
please, I'm being sarcastic because it's absolutely ridiculous, but you don't have to take away someone's basic humanity. And I think bad people is enough.
Yeah.
I don't know why it's necessary to call human beings animals, but what that does is that's exactly the thinking when people commit these ridiculous hate crimes.
Yeah.
You don't deserve humanity, so I'm gonna spit on you. I'm gonna rip your job off.
I'm gonna attack you.
I'm gonna attack you. I'm gonna set you on fire. I'm gonna stab you. I'm gonna shoot you just because of what you look like, because me and my people believe that you're animals. And by my people, I don't mean like an entire race of people, I mean hate groups.
Yeah, and if we have a worry that this will lead to his supporters thinking of these immigrants as people not deserving of normal human decency and respect, do you think that effect will be curtailed by the fact that he was talking about gang members? I don't think so at all. And even we shouldn't even be having. Sometimes I try to be too fair to the criticisms of what we say. It's all BS. The fact that they're talking about MS-13 at all is the deception. That is attempting to pull the wool over people's eyes, because MS-13 and gang infiltration of the US, while it is an issue, is a tiny speck of an issue in the broader context of immigration, what immigrants are like, what they're not like, what our policy needs to be. The simple fact that they focus so much on the gang warfare is to convince normal Americans that immigrants are criminals, that they're a threat, they will come into your society and they will destroy it. I don't care if at that particular moment he's talking about gang members or not when he says that they're animals. The fact that they focus so much on gang members in the first place is designed to fool you into hating people.
And by normal Americans, the large amount of which their ancestors were immigrants.
His and John Kelly's and Tommy Lauren's and all of that. And obviously the particular sort of language here, they're not people, they're animals. Maybe Donald Trump is ignorant of how that has been used in other countries at other times, but thankfully scholars are not. I want to show a tweet by Clint Smith. He's a writer and a PhD candidate at Harvard who says, before enslavement, Africans were called apes. Before the Holocaust, Jewish people were called rats. Before the Rwandan genocide, Tutsis were called cockroaches. Calling undocumented people animals, as the president just did, is gravely serious. It's not just an offensive word.
Clint Smith is also one of the best Twitter accounts you can follow. I've learned so much.
Smart dude.
It's super smart, just from reading the tweets that he breaks down, and that's important right there. It's not just, a lot of times it's not just a word.
Yeah, it's scary, and we already know. I mean, we've been covering it for how long? Like every move on immigration is worse than the last, and like this context, like they're not humans, they're animals. Well, we now know that they're stopping families at the border and they're purposefully separating them from each other. The parents don't need to be with the kids can just go off. And yeah, maybe ICE lost 1,500 migrant children last year, and we don't know where they are. But what's the difference? They're not people, they're strays. Okay, they could just end up wherever they end up. And you know what? We don't really have the facilities for them, so we're going to build gigantic warehouses to put tons of kids in on the border, but it doesn't matter because they're not humans, they're animals, so why even worry about it?
And what it comes down to is this type of wording, it's not necessary. In what way is it ever necessary or need or just absolutely needed? The conversation cannot be had without the President of the United States speaking about human beings like this. It's just, it wasn't even necessary.
No, it's not necessary unless you want to fire up your base, I guess. And again, the dumbest laws in any country. When he says that, you don't even necessarily know what issue he's talking about. He just uses the same terminology for everything. And that's a little bit frustrating.